The Babushka Lady. In November of 1963, when JFK was assassinated, a lady who became known as the Babushka Lady due to the headscarf she was wearing could be seen taking photographs, or probably even filming, the assassination of JFK. This lady was seen taking numerous photographs, or maybe even filming, before and after the assassination of JFK. And during the shooting, despite her co-witnesses taking cover, this woman never seemed to take cover herself. She continued to record the event. After the shooting, the Babushka Lady dispersed along with the rest of the crowd and was never found, nor has been identified despite an extensive search by the FBI. This lady may have had some of the most compelling photos or footage of the JFK assassination. And to this day, she has never turned them in, these photographs have never been found, and she has never been identified. The identity of the Babushka Lady remains a true mystery.
The Tiananmen Square Tank Man. In early June of 1989, the Chinese government viciously cracked down on protesters in Tiananmen Square. This crackdown was witnessed by the world and was seen as vicious and unnecessary. These pro-democracy protesters were peaceful in their actions, but the Chinese government was not in the crackdown. To this day, the exact number killed is not known, but is well believed to be in the thousands. And within 24 hours of this chaos breaking out, one individual became an international symbol for defiance, bravery, and standing up for what you believe in. This individual became known as the Tiananmen Square Tank Man. Upon spotting a column of tanks heading in his direction, this individual carried out an act that can be considered both foolhardy and brave. This individual chose to stand in front of the tanks and force them to stop. The tank commander did stop and did not run this individual over, and in fact tried to maneuver around him. This individual stood his ground, and even climbed up on top of the tank to try and confront the tank commander. Eventually this individual climbed down and was taken away, and to this day his identity remains unknown. Some believe he was quickly executed to avoid him becoming a name and a face for the protest. Others believe he just disappeared into the background and was never found. But whoever he is, to this day his identity remains unknown to the public, and this individual around the world has become a symbol for defiance, bravery, and standing up for what you believe in. This identity of this individual remains unknown, and if he is alive, for his protection, he should remain that way.
The Grand Canyon Mystery Man. The date this photograph was taken is not clear, but it is believed it was taken either in the 70s or the 80s. The individual in this photograph is the uncle of the man who took the photograph. And as somebody would do on a trip to the Grand Canyon, the family decided to take some photos. But once these photos were developed, an unnerving discovery was made. The people who took the photograph and were in the photograph were in the location for about 1 hour, and they were quite certain they were alone. But once we zoom in on the photograph, we can clearly see to the left there was another person there. During the time at the Grand Canyon, these people were certain they were alone. This individual was never seen by the people in the photograph or the individual who took the photograph. This individual never approached them, never identified himself. Who he is remains completely unknown. Why he was there remains completely unknown. What he was doing there remains completely unknown. And how did he go unnoticed? We will probably never know. The Time Traveler. In 1941, a crowd gathered to watch the reopening of a bridge in Canada. This was the South Forks Bridge, and clearly a crowd can be seen to be gathering. But if you look carefully at this photograph, one person in particular stands out. This one man is clearly wearing clothes that are not suited for the time. His sunglasses, his t-shirt, and his cardigan are clearly not for the timeline of the 1940s. Who this man is, where he came from, what he is doing here, why he is wearing clothes 60 years before their time, have never been answered, and this man has never been identified. The Man from Torrid. In 1954, a traveler arrived at Tokyo International Airport, and upon request he presented his credentials, specifically his passport being for the nation of Torrid. This would seem fine except for one problem. The nation of Torrid does not exist. Everything else about this man seemed to be in order. He was well dressed, carried European currency, and seemed to have some business documents with him. A well-dressed Caucasian businessman was the persona he presented. But his passport was a real puzzle. Needless to say, the Japanese customs officials were quite perplexed by this, and this individual was taken aside for further questioning. During the questioning, this individual produced his driver's license. This driver's license seemed legitimate and valid, but it was also from the fictitious nation of that of Torrid. Again, the mystery got deeper. The next act was for the Japanese customs officials to produce a map and ask this gentleman to point to the nation he was from. The gentleman complied and pointed to a spot between France and Spain, in this area that today is known as Andorra. After this compliance with the man and pointing to the area of his nation, this man then realizes his country is not on the map. An uncomfortable silence fills the room. Later, the man insists that his nation has existed for over 1,000 years, and to further complicate issues, his passport seemed to show legitimate transit visas stamped at Tokyo in the past on this questionable passport. Not knowing what to do, the Japanese customs officials put this individual in a hotel under lock and key with 2 guards. The next day, when the Japanese customs officials returned to the hotel to continue the questioning of the man, they were startled to find out that the man was nowhere to be seen. How did he escape? In the front of the hotel, or in front of the hotel room, there were 2 guards, and the hotel room was 100 feet up. This man seemed to have vanished into thin air. His identity to this day remains unknown. The validity of his passport is a true question, especially considering the fact it seemed to have legitimate visa travel stamps from Japanese customs in the past. Who was this man? We will probably never know.